I know this works for rap music as well, but what would you say is the most heavy metal thing to write a heavy metal song about? War? Lots of metal songs about war. Satan? Hell yeah, dude. Death? Yeah, of course. Serial killers? Totally. Vikings? I mean, nothing I listen to, but sure. Cars? Yeah, for a while in like the mid-'80s, I guess Cars was... Sure, yeah. What else do metal bands write about? Political unrest? The clashing of factions and the unfair treatment of the oppressed? For sure. The bands with like that punk ethos hidden behind experimental and expensive equipment, those are some of my favorites. But no, the answer that I'm looking for is heavy metal. There is nothing more metal than writing about metal itself. And that can mean, writing about the fans or loud guitars or mosh pits or whatever, bonded by blood type shit. Metal songs about metal are the most metal songs. So what does it mean when a guy most known for his podcast gets interviewed on a different podcast? Does that mean that this episode of Branching Out is the most podcast episode so far? Or ever? Also, to be clear, rapping about how good of a rapper you are is the most rap thing to rap about. I'm Josh Lindley, and this is Branching Out. This week, I'm joined by Erick Castro. Erick has been running his Bartender at Large podcast for almost 500 episodes. We get into how he started podcasting in the first place, but what's important to know is that he didn't go there first. Erick spent years working at some very notable bars with some very notable bartenders. Some, he would say, were mentors to him, or at least in certain respects. He was also a brand ambassador before most of us knew what that even meant. Erick was invited onto the show because when I talked with Sarah Ruiz from Quito, Ecuador, she said his is the only podcast that she listens to, which is both fair and hard on my feelings. Erick talks about the examples set for him throughout his career and how he hopes that he's setting those examples for everyone after him. Here's Erick Castro on Branching Out. Okay. Dear Erick Castro, I'm happy to have you here on Branching Out. Rather than reading a bio that I never asked you to write and send to me, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Oh, yeah. My name's Erick Castro, host of the Bartender Large podcast, which is approaching its 500th episode, by the way, which is insane.
500?
Yeah. I own a couple bars, and I'm spearheading called Gilly's House Cocktails and Raised by Wolves both here in San Diego. Formerly, before that, I was a part owner at Boilermaker, Super Bueno, and Polite Provisions. But now I'm just down to these two in San Diego. I'm also spearheading the launch of a new liqueur called Maya Elixir, which is a Mexican spiced chocolate liqueur, which should be in market here in the U.S. maybe sometime in the next 3 or 4 months.
Question for you, with all these things that you do, and I've asked a couple different interviewees on this question, do you find that there's people that you're Erick from Bartender at Large, or you're Erick from Raised by Wolves, or you're Erick from now this Maya Liqueur? Do you feel like there's a divide?
Yeah, it happens. It happens quite often. Yeah, and I kind of like it. I'm kind of a bit of a workaholic, and I like that I can, with all my projects, I get to work all the time on things that I really care about and very passionate about, and I never get bored because I'm not doing the same thing 2 days in a row. Do
you have something that you personally identify with? Like when you wake up in the morning, are you a bartender? Are you a podcaster? Are you a liqueur guy?
I think I'm a dog owner.
You're a dog.
I'm a dog owner first. First thing I got to do is wake up, and then take these two little rascals out so that they can go ahead and do their business out front.
Yeah.
Then I have a cup of coffee before we go on a really long walk.
Right. That's a really good answer. How long ago? So you say it's 500 episodes of Bartender at Large now.
It's nuts, man.
But for anyone listening, like for the last, 7 years, Bartender at Large has been strictly a podcast. But you started out, it was a documentary.
It actually started out as a documentary. I had to do I wanted to do the math real quick. Like, wait, how many is that? Yeah, it started out as a documentary. Here's the funny thing. It started out as a documentary film. The film did pretty well, but the thing is we didn't have much of a marketing budget.
Yeah.
So I was thinking like, well, I know what we'll do. We'll just do like a little podcast series, like a video series, I guess, online to kind of get the word out about the show. And by doing that, we all of a sudden realized that like the show ended up taking on a life of its own. So I go, well, shoot, let's just have it, started out as like a side marketing project, and then it became a full-fledged like cocktail podcast series. And it's funny because I don't even really feel like the podcast got that good until maybe about a year in. I always tell people, like, give yourself some time with it, not even with a podcast, but any new project to, like, get your footing. Because a lot of times projects will evolve. And I felt like the early days, it was kind of just like a rowdier show. We get, drunk on episodes and just talk about like unruly guests and how you got into bartending, that sort of thing. And eventually evolved into something that became more along the lines of like, we started to tackle heavier topics like addiction and mental health, depression, anxiety, and all this stuff. And then those episodes ended up doing really well. Like we got tons of feedback and letters from people like, oh my God, I haven't heard anybody talk about this. Everything with the bar world is so, hunky dory and everybody puts a smile on their face. And for hear you guys be so real, it made me feel a little validated. Like, no, I'm not the only one going through this. And that's when we're like, you know what? Let's just let the show take on a life of its own and let our listeners guide us as to where it needs to go, as opposed to, this is Bourbon 101 today,
Yeah, I think that's interesting to hear too. So you feel like not just from listeners, but yourself, like you were leading the show.
Yeah.
So as you were discussing these heavier topics, it's things you were dealing with personally as well.
Yeah. I remember specifically the two guests, we had a couple guests on. They used to be more of like a roundtable format, which we've gone back to now and then, but now it just works so much better. It's like a one-on-one.
Yeah.
And then I remember at the time, I had these two guests coming on. They were just like, Eric, I don't want to talk about like the sidecar or mojito. I just want to talk about like all I feel right now is a lot of burnout, and I don't even know if I should be on. I'm like, wait, why don't we talk about that? I'm a little burnout. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then that's when it's almost turned like a therapy session. Really just like bartenders just sitting around the table venting and talking about life. And then from there, it just took on a life of its own. And that's when we realized that the show had much more of a opportunity, and largely, if you think about it, really a responsibility to our listeners to be a voice and talk about the things that we don't always get a platform to talk about. And then now I know some of our younger listeners might think like, oh wait, yeah, but no, there's tons of like programs and stuff that address mental health for bartenders today. There's all kinds of really cool programs. I mean, I like to think we helped pave the way for that, because 8 or 9 years ago, brands did not want to be affiliated with that.
Yeah, definitely
They
not.
would not. Like, I remember submitting stuff like that for, to these big cocktail conferences. They would get shut down every year because, I flat out had someone on the phone tell me once, one of the organizers, be like, people don't want to talk about that stuff. It's depressing. No brand's going to want to be associated with that.
Yeah.
This is fun. It's supposed to be fun. And I was like, but this is a real thing. So now, hopefully, I feel like a lot of, it wasn't just me, but me and a bunch of other people talk about these things, 9 years ago, 10 years ago. It helped open the way for people to be like, hey, look, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. If you're feeling a certain way, it's you're just, your outputs are the result of your input. So maybe we should adjust those.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that too. Literally 3 days ago, this isn't going to air for a month or something, but 3 days ago, we picked our seminar committee, picked all the seminars for Toronto Cocktail Conference. And it's something that we talk about a lot, because a lot of people submit seminars dealing with mental health and burnout and what it's like to be a bartender and be surrounded by booze all the time. And everyone wants you to host the party. What we find with it is a lot of times it's bartenders who are experiencing that, but it's not necessarily someone who has the education and accreditation to deal with it in a balanced way, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's because I feel like some of these things have such a massive, like I said, opportunity, but responsibility. You can't just go on stage and be like, hey, I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you can, but it's a little more actionable if you have somebody up there like, hey, last year I was really burnt out, or a couple years ago, and this is what I did through it. And then here we have a mental health expert to, give you guys like a toolkit and a toolbox to hopefully to not only deal with the burnout, but also help avoid it in the first place.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, quit drinking. And it's like, okay, I quit drinking 2 months ago. I still don't feel great. What's that going to do? And that's where you run into the problems when you start hosting those kinds of seminars, right?
I mean, and also some of these things, I also feel like a lot of times, some of these are such heavy topics. I feel wary about people address them in an educational format unless they have the proper training to do that.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of two guys who aren't trained to talk about that.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I mean, we're talking about it, but I feel it's something else to completely be like, this is how you fix it, right?
Oh,
or
for
this
sure.
is how you address that.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of this is just mostly just getting a lot of the stuff out in the open and talking about this stuff, So I feel like it's a really important thing, and we have the platform for it, so we might as well, I guess, help normalize it so people know that there's nothing wrong with them.
Yeah, you're allowed to talk about it, but maybe be careful if you start offering advice.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, you can obviously say, but hey, I lost 10 pounds by working out and doing some cardio and stuff, but I'm not qualified to give start telling people what medications they need to start taking.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
So Erick, the whole thing with branching out is that I reach out to bartenders, I reach out to industry professionals, and they tell me who their influences are and who brought them up and taught them how to be how they are at a bar. I'll be totally honest with you. Did an interview with a woman named Sarah Ruiz. You know her? She was San Francisco for a bit, DC for a bit. Now she's got a bar down in Quito in Ecuador. And when I asked her about her, yeah, it's rad. The name of the bar is Big Bar.
Yeah, she used to work with Kevin Dietrich, right? Over at PCH.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, great gal.
Yeah.
Great gal.
Yeah. I asked her about her influences and what she listens to and what she reads or whatever. And she was like, honestly, and like on a podcast says to my face, I'm not a podcast girl, but I do listen to Erick Castro.
Right on, thanks.
Yeah. So that's how you ended up here. I wanted to, though, I know that you host your own podcast and you're pretty open about your experience or whatever, but I'm going to do a quick thing. Before you ever did Bartender at Large, you worked at some pretty heavy hitter bars like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
In and around San Francisco mostly, yeah?
Always been very fortunate with a lot of opportunities I've gotten. Also, a lot of it was just good timing.
Yeah.
A lot of it was good timing. So, I was in San Francisco at a very pivotal moment for craft cocktails. And, I've talked about this with other people in the past, but I feel like so much of this was basically, it's like back then there weren't a lot of opportunities and places that would humor you if you wanted to make craft cocktails. So because of that, you had to find the right spot. And also what that meant is that since you narrowed down, is a smaller funnel, right? Smaller end of the funnel, you ended up getting people who were really into it. You weren't, because like sometimes now I meet bartenders who are kind of just like, oh yeah, I'm trying to be an actor. So like, I'm just making craft cocktails right now just to like, because it's flexible, I could give away shifts for auditions or whatever. They're not all that into it. But back then, oh man, in San Francisco, we were like a cult.
Yeah. It
was like ride or die. And like, we were into it. And also it was like, now the craft cocktail is very mainstream. So, I even tell people, I think a lot of people, if you're like under 30, the word craft cocktail doesn't mean anything to them. They turned 21 when the cocktail was already craft. So it's kind of, it's like saying cocktail. It's like, why are you saying that? It's just call it a cocktail. It's cocktail.
Yeah.
So, but back then it was a little bit more like, contentious. Like a lot of times people didn't support us. Like people would like, distributors would come in and like make fun of you and like yell at you for not carrying their favorite flavored vodka. And, chefs would talk shit to us and like sometimes try to like tear us down and stuff, try to get you fired. Cause they're like, you're like, oh wait, if this guy wins a bunch of cocktail awards, if this didn't happen to me necessarily, but maybe a little bit. It's like, oh, if this guy starts winning awards and he's the press is going to start writing about my bartender instead of me. And I'm the one that wants to be famous, So you get a lot of weird hate like that. Not as bad as some other people I know got it, but yeah, it was very contentious.
Yeah.
Like customers be mean you. So I think because that it made us very like adamant about what we did. We were like, I'm making you a sidecar from like with the best recipe, the way I learned how to make it at the, while I was in Paris talking to French bartenders. It's like that. But it was cool, man. And I kind of think we needed that mentality to kind of help spearhead what became a national movement, global movement, really.
Yeah, certainly. And with your dedication to that craft cocktail and paying attention to ingredients that you're using, you ended up working for pretty big gin companies for a bit. Yeah,
I worked for Beefeater in Plymouth for a couple of years, spearheaded the cocktail program at Rick House in San Francisco, which was like a really big deal at the time because we were doing very, very high volume craft cocktails at scale in San Francisco. And it was like a very influential program at the time. It was a lot of fun too. A lot of fun in that place. I was Bourbon and Branch before that. And then really, for the most part, before all that stuff, I was just working in a chain restaurant, just getting really fast and learning infrastructure and systems. I never learned how to squeeze a lime there. I was making sour mix out of a bag. But the one thing I do give a lot of credit to, like a lot of some of these very efficient chain restaurants, is you learn systems, man. You learn systems, infrastructure, and communication. And then I was really good at all that. I was like a corporate trainer and, traveled around doing openings. And then I feel like once you get really good at that, and then you learn how to make craft cocktails, you're like, yeah, okay, this is just one more, just got to update some recipes and learn how to use fresh juices. But that's what I feel like kind of set me apart from a lot of my coworkers back in the day, because, I would go and I'd work at this, a famous craft cocktail bar, and I would just be like, hey, when's this grenadine from? And they're like, huh? And these are guys who've only worked in like fancy bars. Like, yeah, it just says grenadine. There's no date on it. Who made this? When was it made? And they're just like, I'm like, bro, like, and then you open it up and it's turned. I'm like, it takes a while for grenadine to go bad. Like,
Yeah.
And this already turned. And then, but we have another one. It's next to two other ones. Like, bro, you need to start labeling, dating this stuff. And well, also, I want to know who made it.
Or like when you, when you go to open the deli container and it hisses at you.
Oh yeah, or it's like it's bubbling already.
Yeah.
So I was just like, or you'd be in the middle of service on Friday night. You're like, okay, I need more lemon juice. Wait, which of these is lemon? None of these are labeled. Like, or this one has yellow tape on the top, but I opened it up. It's actually grapefruit juice. Who would put grapefruit juice in one with in the lemon bottle? And it just turns into like this whole chaos. So when I started, one of the things I really did for when I was in bartending in San Francisco was like everything in systems.
Yep.
Everything is systems. There's 4 lemons here. There's 4 limes here. The grenadine's labeled, and then it has who made it, on what day, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then that's what allows you to do volume, because you're limiting ambiguity and you're creating infrastructure that's conducive to volume. So.
Yeah. And what was it that brought you to chain restaurants in the first place? When did you decide that bartending or bar adjacent stuff was going to be the thing for you?
It was never a conscious decision.
No.
You give me too much credit. No, what it really was is I was just, going to San Diego State. And I'm just like just some little, shithead college student. And my roommate, who I'd known for like 15 years, he and I went to middle school together, he said, hey man, like, hey bro, you should come work with this restaurant, man. We're looking for a busser. And they're like, bro, you can bus tables, man. It's good money. And you work your ass off, but I know you're a hard worker. Come work with us. It's all right. So I started working there, and it was just busting, making money. And I just kept, next thing you know, I like to work, and I like to do a variety of things. So I was just like, oh, Eric, you want to host? We need some hosting. And I know you said you want to serve, so you're going to need to learn how to host too. Okay, cool. So I just started doing that. And then next thing you know, I'm serving. And then next thing you know, I'm, doing cocktail serving. Like we used to have there was a bar, like a sports bar attached to it. So I'm doing that. And then next thing you know, I'm bartending. So it's just floor manager. I'm doing everything. And I loved it. It was just, it was a lot of fun. It was just very high, I guess, very high intensity, very fast paced restaurant. Mm-hmm. And you could get your ass kicked, man. Like it was one of those places where if one of the bartenders on Friday night need to get their shift covered, it had to get okayed by a manager, because it's like, who's gonna cover you? Ronnie? No, Ronnie's not ready for Friday night.
Right.
It's like, wait, no, but he's been bartending for 3 months. No, no. You need to find someone else. See if Veronica will do it. Mm-hmm. It was like one of those types of vibes where like, no, poor Ronnie, he's just gonna get like destroyed. So it's like nowadays I feel like that's not really a thing in most places. But yeah, it was one of those places where we did serious volume.
Yeah.
And it was fun.
Was there, let's get into the supposed real point of branching out. Was there someone at one of these chain restaurants when you had just first started that really impressed on you the idea of systems, or making sure that Ronnie can handle Friday night? Would you say that you found one of your
I would give credit to the whole, pretty much the entire management staff there. Or there were like probably 3. I had 3 really good managers when I started working at this restaurant. And those were 3 managers who I thought all managers were like that. All restaurant managers were like that. Mind you, I'm young. I'm like, I don't know, 21, 22 or something. I thought all restaurant managers were like that. And they were just badass. They did everything. Like, if we're a server down, they would help get tables going and get them started, take orders, and then transfer to a server. And they would just they did everything that had to be done to keep that place running smooth. Yeah. And it was great. And I've since taken that mentality. It's like, it's weird. I've had bartenders tell me like, hey, you're for bar clean day, I'll be there at bar clean, and I'm cleaning shit. And I, because I'm just like, if it has to get done, I'll be there. If I'm gonna ask you to do it, I'll do it too. I'll never ask you to do anything that I'm not gonna do. So, and I feel like I learned a lot of that was impressed on me by these 3 particular managers I had, who were just like, they were incredible.
Are you still in touch with any of them?
They just got shit done. Yeah, I see some of them. Yeah, fairly often. No, not fairly often, but a couple times a year, I'll bump into them somewhere. They'll be like, hey, Eric, and of course they're always like, Eric, we're so proud of you. Like, hey man, I'm gonna come. Hey, I'm gonna be in La Jolla later this week. Are you going to be at Raised by Wolves? And I'll try to pop over and have a cocktail with them and stuff and say hi. Yeah. But again, I'm telling you, man, it's like there are actually probably 4 of them who just got it done. And it's crazy because ever since I've managed or done stuff at other jobs, a lot of times like the servers will be like, oh, that was, I'll just take a bunch of tables. Everybody's getting slammed. And I'm like, if there's one thing I hate at a bar or restaurant is a false wait. Mm. And that's when you're holding the door for no reason, just because no one wants to kick in the third gear, no one wants to help each other out.
Yeah.
And they're just like, I'll be like, managing or something like, hey, well, how come we're in a 15-minute wait? There's all these guests out front. And they're like, oh, well, the servers can't take another server. I'm like, I'll do it. No, send them in, sit them down. I'll get them started with drinks. I'll take their orders at least.
Yeah.
And then get everything in and then just transfer it to one of the servers.
Yeah.
And the servers love it because like, oh, dude, I got to keep all the tips, and you just
Totally.
you did their whole like you transferred over like $160 tab. Yeah, awesome. And then the guest loves it because they didn't have to wait for no reason. And then I like it because it gives me something to do, and everyone's happier that way.
Yeah, and by the time the server actually gets to the table, they're ready for it. They aren't frazzled. They aren't. Yeah. They don't already have 3 pages of notes in front of them. Yeah. And
I've worked at places where that manager would just be like, well, I'm not doing that. Yeah, just make these people wait.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wait, so you're standing here? It's like I've just never understood that. Especially it's like, wait, your bonus is tied to sales. And then now you're telling that and basically I believe, your leadership is always creating culture, whether they're conscious of it or not.
Mm-hmm.
So when the manager's just standing around, and then if the person at the top is just standing around, you're sending a message to everyone else that everyone else can just stand around and dick around.
Yeah.
I'm like, But then when you see an owner or a GM or manager or whatever out there busting ass, and they're not above anything, busting tables and running glassware and stuff, it basically shows that, hey, we're all in this together.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
And it's not just talk; we're actually living it.
Yeah. So moving beyond your chain restaurant, once you started, when San Francisco was as intense and like very much a beacon of, whether we were calling it the cocktail renaissance or not, I don't know. At this point, that feels like dirty words. But,
I don't know.
Yeah, like mid-2000s to late 2000s, when you're at Bourbon and Branch, when you're working with Beefeater and Plymouth, what are some of the people, or who are some of the people that you were working with or that you interacted with that you felt were really inspirational and that kept you as engaged?
Simon Ford, man.
Simon Ford, yeah.
Simon Ford, yeah. Simon Ford was the man. He's like, still is the man. He's like entrepreneurial, launched his own gin. He's out there kind of living it, right? Living the dream in a lot of ways. And I remember I left the bar and became a brand ambassador for a couple of years. My plan was I wanted to open my own spot. So I was like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go be a brand ambassador for a couple of years. And then I'm going to, try to land a bar somewhere in that time. I'll travel around the world on someone else's dime, see all the cool things that people are doing, and try to implement them in my own bar. And one of the people who was, someone who'd already done the job before I even took the job, who'd done it before, was Simon Ford. And he's just one of those guys who, man, I don't know where he gets his energy, but he's just one of those people who's everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Like, you shoot him a text and he's like, oh, I just landed in Greece. Oh, where are you at? Oh, shoot. He's always somewhere like, hey, where you at now? Oh, man, I'm in Singapore, dude. I'm doing like a gin dinner tonight, for a bunch of bartenders from Singapore. He's just always somewhere, and he's just always on the move. And he's someone who I took a lot of cues from and was just very much trying to emulate in the sense of like, he was one of those guys that's like when I remember living in San Francisco when I first met him, it's like when Simon came to town, people would try to get their shift covered so they could go hang out. Like, oh, Simon's in town tonight? Oh, shoot. Hey, man, anyone want to pick up my 6 p.m.? Like, pick up my shift? I'm going to go hang with Simon tonight. It was like a big deal. People want to go hang. So I always kind of saw it like that. I'm like, you want to be kind of, you want to, like, as a brand ambassador, your job is to kind of embody and personify the brand. And that's why it's so important that you get somebody who's, convivial and warm in that position. So Simon was someone who I deeply, very much tried to emulate and tap into, I guess not necessarily copy him because our personalities are very different.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be like, hey, well, I want to represent Beefeater and Plymouth in a way that's like that I feel like to the best of my abilities.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like some of what you learned working with Beefeater and Plymouth, not necessarily from Simon, but maybe from Simon, is that affecting the way that you're going about putting together your liqueur brand now? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because there's one thing, and even now with the launch, I mean, Simon is still giving me a lot of advice, from all the things he's learned from, his brand, his own brand, his consulting things he's done over the years. So he's still a heavy resource that I'm not afraid to tap into. He and I just actually talked the other day. But very much that because the thing is, Simon's also very unique in the sense that he's worked for, one of the biggest liquor companies in the world, but he's also launched his own small brand. Mm-hmm.
So he knows how to throw an amazing party with, $90,000 but he also knows how to make a memorable event for just a couple grand, or even less than that, probably like $900, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of it is about he understands the assignment.
Yep.
And so that's one thing I've taken from that. And the thing is, also when it comes to a brand, it's like so much of it is, and being a brand ambassador is about having a cohesive vision and then bringing that vision to life.
Yeah. It's almost it's almost like being able to speak an entirely different language.
It is because really, if you think about it, if you're working for the brand, you're almost, I remember John Sander told me this a long time ago. He's basically, he was working for Hendrix Gin. He told me, he's like, when you're a brand, you're basically like the liaison between like the suits, the executives, and the bartenders, the industry. And he's like, mind you, some of these executives, they don't go to bars. They've never waited a single table in their life. They've never bartended. So they don't always speak the language of a bartender, but the best ones are eager to help and to serve the bar staff. So it's your job to kind of be the in-between and tell them what they need, right? Yeah. So a lot of it is that. And a lot of it's kind of, not to get too deep in the weeds in the marketing aspect, but it's about delivering like a cohesive vision so everything makes sense. But also anyone who runs a good bar knows that too. It's about having a cohesive vision for the bar and for product, or I guess brand identity. And your bar would also have a brand identity as well for what it's offering for the neighborhood.
Yeah. Who else sticks out in your brain when whether it's while you were making drinks or opening a bar, or did you have bar managers that you learned from while you were opening bars? Like, who else stands out to you as being like pillars of who built Erick Castro to be Erick Castro?
Ooh, I would say, someone who really helped me with the cocktail side and was just always an awesome resource when I was living in San Francisco. Even before I lived in San Francisco, this guy was awesome, was Marco Dionysus. Marco's amazing. Everyone out there knows him as like the inventor of the chartreuse swizzle, which is what I believe is is my favorite modern classic. Cocktail's fantastic. But the thing, Marco was just like, I love cocktail books, man. I'm swimming in them. I have too damn many of them. I have like original prints from like 120 years ago and all that kind of stuff. But the thing was, like, Marco was really smart because he got into that before like the boom took off. So he was getting, classic cocktail books from like, the early 1900s, late 1800s for like $30, $40, $50 on eBay.
Right.
I think it was just him and Greg competing against each other. But yeah, Marco was always just one of those people like, oh, dude, you want to borrow one of my cocktail books? Yeah, here you go. Here you go. Oh, hey. And he's just very free with the information. And I feel like in this era, a lot of people, San Francisco is unique. San Francisco is very helpful with everybody. But I noticed a lot of times people kept their cards close to the chest. So a lot of people didn't want to share information with you or tell you how to make certain things or certain ingredients or where they found a recipe. You'd be like, oh, hey, man, this daiquiri riff's really good. They're like, oh, yeah, it's, from, Sloppy Joe's in Havana, back in, 1934. You'd be like, oh, what's in it? And they wouldn't give you the recipe. They wouldn't tell you how to make it. People were just weird like that.
Right.
But Marco, I felt, was the exact opposite. He's like, oh, hey, man, you want this? You want my recipe for that? This is how I make my grenadine. This is how I make this. So he was just one of those people who's always very open with knowledge and, critiques. He would come into Rick House a lot or Ribbon Ranch when I was in there because he lived near, in the area. And, I'd be like, hey, this is something I'm messing around with. Hey, what do you think about this? And so it was very, he was very open with ideas and recipe ideas and just, I guess, feedback and information.
Yeah. And
in an era when that wasn't always free. And I know some people out there might be listening and be like, yeah, so what? Like, yeah, he was helpful with recipes and stuff. So what? Like, yeah, bro, you're saying this from 2026, which is like, you could buy, Sammy Ross's app or, Morgenthaler's book or you go on YouTube and there's a million resource for craft cocktails. But like, in 2009, that wasn't always the case. There were some resources online, but it wasn't like an abundance like today.
No, it was like message boards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of those message boards are still up, by the way, like Eagle It and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I was a little young for that, but I have gone back on there and like found some of those things, and it's so cool. You'll just see like, Audrey Saunders and like Greg Boehm and like David Wondrich on like a forum from like 2002 talking about falernum.
Right.
It's so cool. They're still up there with their like real names and stuff because it's just what it was like back then. It's crazy.
Yeah. Have you got anyone else or anything else that sticks out in your brain, whether it's a book you think everyone should read as we're talking about books or people that...
Man. Honestly, another person I got to say, I would be remiss not to mention Julie Reiner. Julie's a beast. Dude.
Yeah.
I love that woman. I would take a bullet for Julie. She's one of those people who like, I feel like one of the things that's so unique about Julie and the reason why we did a pop-up with her with my staff and I told my staff, I'm like, all right, guys, hey, you guys are gonna go meet Julie. I'm gonna introduce you guys. Like, everybody be on top of your shit and listen to everything she says.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this woman is like a walking, she's walking, talking bar wisdom personified. So like everything she says is like worth listening to and worth considering. And so everybody's like, oh, like really, really pumped up because she's one of those people who, if you really think about it, a lot of her contemporaries, a lot of the people who she came up with aren't around anymore, aren't all that influential anymore. For better or worse, for better or for worse. And I feel like she's one of those people who's her light only grows brighter as more time passes. Like, I mean, she's still, she's out there doing it, man. Like, Milady's is an amazing bar in New York. She brought it back to life. She revived the whole place. She's got the Netflix series.
Yeah.
She's out there doing it, and I respect that. And I don't like when people try to use excuses for like why they're not doing cool things or innovating anymore. And you're like, oh, I got kids now and blah, blah. I'm just like, they kind of lose that hunger.
Yeah.
But like Julie, she's got like, kids in high school, like out there doing it. And she's not using any of that stuff. She's not resting on her laurels. She's out there getting it done.
I always joke
and like still innovating and still doing cool stuff and still pushing the envelope with creativity and with offerings and entrepreneurial aspects. And I just respect that because, so often it's like people like to, when people lose their hunger, God bless them. I'm not going to knock anybody for that. They lose a little bit of their drive. And they kind of go, oh, it's going to have kids. I'm married now. It's like, no, Julie's like just as fierce as ever.
Mm-hmm. I always joke that
you don't want to get in the ring with Julie.
She always, whenever everyone's like, yeah, what's the deal with Julie Reiner? I'm like, she's your favorite bartender's favorite bartender.
Yeah. No, she's amazing.
Yeah. If you had to ask Julie any question that you haven't, and I mean, have you two ever worked with each other, like at a bar at the same time, other than pop-ups and stuff?
No. We've actually never worked together, but we've just always. She kind of took me under her wing a long time ago, like, and started giving me advice. Oh, you know what it was? We both hailed from San Francisco. Well, I mean, I wasn't born there, but I lived there a good chunk of my life, and she was in a very similar boat.
Yeah.
So that's what it was. Now that I think about it, that's what it was, because I was running the bar at Rick House, and Rick House was getting a lot of acclaim, lots of press, lots of hype. And then Julie was, I feel like a lot of times people were kind of being like, who are these guys? Let's see what they're all about, Mm-hmm. But Julie was very much like, oh, Eric, I love that. Because San Francisco was like the leader for craft cocktails, back in the day. We were using fresh juice in like nightclubs, she's telling me, like back in the 90s, Eric. So I love what you guys are doing because you guys are bringing back some spotlight. You're part of like the, bringing some spotlight back to San Diego or San Francisco because San Francisco deserves it. So she's always had a lot of love for San Francisco. So she kind of saw what my generation of bartenders were doing at the time. And she really applauded that. So because of that, I was very lucky. She kind of took me under her wing in a lot of ways, like back in probably 2009.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, Eric, what are you doing? Oh, just got off of an airplane here in New Orleans. Let's go talk. Let's go get some food. I'm like, all right, let's go. I'm like, I'm not saying no. Yeah. You're Julie Reiner. Yeah, where do you want to go? Yeah. So because of that, she's always had a strong love and affection for San Francisco, as do I. And so I think it was like we kind of had that touch point.
Yeah, I know that you run your own podcast, and I know that you and Julie talk often enough. Mm-hmm. If you're going to throw me in front of something that you want to ask Julie or get Julie to talk about, what would it be?
I would talk. I mean, if you were to get Julie on, I would talk. She's really good at atmosphere. She's good at a lot of things. But I think one of the things she's really good at with her bars are atmospheres. Her atmosphere. Her bars always have a vibe to them that's palpable. And I feel like a lot of, which is why I feel like her bars are always busy. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of bars out there that don't have an identity. It's just kind of, or sometimes even worse, the bartender or the identity changes and shifts based on who's working. That's not good. So because I have noticed sometimes you'll go to a bar and it's just like there's heavy metal playing and, it's really rowdy, blah, blah, because it's like, whoever's working, just that's what they're into. Mm-hmm. And some people kind of walk in like, ooh, it's a little too intense, and they leave. But then you come back like 2 days later and it's just really chill, like down-tempo house music playing or something. But the thing is, someone who comes in the night before, hey, I was metal in here the other night, man, I liked it. Oh, this sucks. And they leave. So it's like, people can't, like, it's important that people know where they're going, can choose a place to go based on their mood.
Yeah.
And what they're in the mood for. But if the vibe is constantly shifting, people aren't always in the mood to be surprised.
Yeah.
And one thing I feel like Julie's really good at setting a vibe in an atmosphere with intention, and then maintaining that and keeping it so that all the staff she hires is on board with that. All the food they serve is on board with that too. Like her her venues are always in alignment with each other.
Yeah.
You know, I go to Clover Club all the time. Like anytime I'm in New York, I'm at Clover Club. Sometimes I'm there. I think this last time I was there in December, and I think I was there like 2 or 3 nights in a row, 2 nights in a row. And the thing about Clover Club is like, I know it's Clover Club is like classic cocktails and like Americana.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in my mind, no one's told me that, but in my mind. So it's like, you're going to go in there, you're going to get like fried chicken or a burger. You're going to get a martini or a martini riff. The cocktails are still push the envelope, don't get me wrong, but it's always rooted in like a, that classic Americana vibe. And I feel like the bar top's like that. The venue's like that. The uniforms are like that. The staff is very much in line with that. So I know it can be really hard to find people who are going to be in alignment with the venue. And she does that. I think that's why you go in there. Some of the staff has been there for like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
They have bartenders there. And you know how hard it is to have a craft cocktail bar that is still thriving after 15 years?
Yeah.
It's almost unheard of. Like,
yeah,
you can count those places on one hand off the top of your head.
Yeah.
I refer to those places like legacy bars. I call them legacy bars.
For sure.
Where it's like they're bars that have already proven everything, won tons of awards, and they're still busy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. Speaking of people who have those legacy things, same thing. If I was going to ask Marco or Simon anything on your behalf, what would it be?
Oh man, talked to Simon about entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Simon's really good at that.
Yeah.
He's like a marketing genius in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so yeah, we talked about entrepreneurship. Actually, you could ask all three of these about longevity, because longevity is just something that isn't always something that people in the bar world pull off. Like, it's just like, I just even mentioned, like Julie, Clover Club's like, I think 15 years old now.
Yeah.
And you still go in there and it's packed.
Yeah.
I was in there for brunch, and it's just like, they're like on a, 30-minute wait, 35-minute wait. And I'm like, okay, see, that's
and
the
not
thing.
one of the false waits.
Yeah, not a false wait. Like, no, they have that dialed in. Yeah. They wouldn't put up with that. But again, it's just like, and then Marco, I would talk to Marco about cocktail creation, man. Marco's like, he's just a wizard at it. The dude, he understands inputs, and he understands his ingredients. So he understands, like, he like can look at a piece of paper and then look at the recipe and already know what the drink's gonna taste like, right? I feel like most of us bartenders could do that, but he could do it even with like more esoteric ingredients. And he's really good at that. Like I don't think the Pina Verde would have ever been a cocktail. That's a drink I'm known for, had it not been for the chartreuse swizzle.
Yep.
Because I remember my original version of that cocktail, when I first made it, it was like I was pretty much just made like a pina colada, and I floated green chartreuse on top. Like, maybe it was a healthy float though, right?
Yep.
Like maybe half ounce, 3/4 ounce. And everybody liked it. I remember I first made it when I was working at Brick House one night, because Jen from Small Hands.
Yep.
She's like, I want to get everybody away from Coco Lopez. I'm making my own version, and I only have a certain amount of bottles, so I'm gonna give you guys some at Brick House because you guys use a lot of my stuff. It's like, okay. And we were playing around with it, making those cocktails. And I was making that cocktail. I remember making it for industry people when they came. And then when I started working for Beefeat, I started doing the same drink but with gin. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, but again, everybody loved it. Everybody loved the chartreuse aspect. Oh, the chartreuse and coconut's really good. So at a certain point, I was like, wait, why don't I just pull the? I remember looking at the chartreuse swizzle and thinking like, well, dude, he just, chartreuse is so strong in ABV. Like Marco for his drink, he just dropped it to to 1.5 ounces, or a little bit, maybe 1.75 ounces or whatever. So like, okay, wait, I don't even need gin in mine. Why don't I just kick up the chartreuse to 1.5 ounces? It's 55% ABV, so it's still gonna it's gonna be plenty strong for people. It'll give it that balance, and it worked. So I honestly feel like I've learned a lot from him just by proximity,
as far
just
as
by
creation
trying to understand
is concerned. Yeah,
because that's a weird spec.
Yeah,
when you look at the chartreuse swizzle, it's a weird spec, right? And you're just kind of like. But then again, it's just like a whole longevity thing, bro. I think he won a craft cocktail competition with the USBG, like in Europe, like in Italy, bro. I think in like 1998 or something with the chartreuse swizzle. That's what I mean.
Right. There's certain things. Certain things that last.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I mean, it takes a lot of innovation, a lot of creativity and understanding to be able to create a cocktail that isn't built off of an existing template. And I feel like that's what the chartreuse swizzle does.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was an existing template, I've never seen it before, but it's such a unique. It's not like a sour. It's not like the Mr. Potato Head style making cocktails where it's just like, oh, this is the sour. This is part of the sour family. This is like a mojito riff. This is a blah blah blah. Marcos is just like, all right, this is a really weird recipe.
All right. So
let's make it.
I just got one more question before I get you to tell us where everyone can find you is, what do you think of mentorship? Have you got a mentor? Are you mentoring someone specifically right now?
Oh yeah, I'm a big believer in mentoring. I actually took part in a mentorship program last year. I've been involved with the San Diego State, School of Journalism mentorship program for a long time. That's actually how I've met. That's how I met the gal who does our social media for Gillies and Bartender at Large right now. And then I'm a big believer. What's the name of that? What's that? Ken Shamrock, I believe.
Okay. Yeah.
This his school, his martial arts schools. They have this a really cool way of doing things. It's like above, equal, below. I might be messing up the terminology there, but it's basically it's like you should be mentored. You should be mentoring under somebody who's better than you.
Mm-hmm.
Better than you. I mean, I guess in the given field, right?
Yeah.
And then you should have an equal with whom you collaborate with, and that would be kind of competing. It's like sparring, general sparring, whatever. And then at the same time, you should be mentoring somebody whose skill level is below yours.
Right.
And because I feel like all of those are important because you want to be like, obviously like someone like Simon has so much more experience with entrepreneurship in regards to like brand launching than I do. So, I talked to him, I got a lot of information, a lot of feedback and advice from him. And then, but then I also have friends of mine who I collaborate with we're talking about, podcasting and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I have people who I work with on my teams who I mentor and also like assign them to oversee their mentorship with other staff members as well.
Yeah.
So I'm actually headed to our Gillies weekly manager meeting, and we have a phenomenal employee, bartender named Julian. So she comes to these because she helps out with a lot of the administrative work. And I make sure she's very involved with costing out cocktails, events. She's CC'd on all the events because I'm like, I don't want her to be in the dark on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to give her the training and the resource to be the ultimate badass.
Yeah.
And like in just a couple of years' time, she's gonna be an absolute monster. She's a total badass already, but her skill set's only getting more and more fleshed out.
It's also funny to hear you say you reference Ken Shamrock's style of mentoring, and then say that you're training this person to be an absolute monster, which sounds like exactly what Ken Shamrock would try to train.
Yeah, that's what I mean, right?
his fighters to be like. Yeah. Okay, Eric, thank you.
We even slow down our meetings.
Yeah.
Even here, I want to wrap up one thing. Even during our meetings, I'll slow things down and be like, okay, hey, Julie, I want you to understand, like, pay attention to this part, or here, this is why we're doing this, because I want you to understand, what the mentality is behind it. I try to include her with everything, but not just the what's, but also the hows and whys.
Mm-hmm. It's all super important. I'm
Yeah.
going to let you get to your manager meeting, but how do people find you if people don't already know how to find you?
If they want to hit me up on social media, I'm at the podcast is at Bartender at Large, and then me, I'm at Hungry Bartender. They can find me at Raised by Wolves in San Diego or Gillies House Cocktails in San Diego. Wow, Gillies actually celebrating its 20th year this year.
And you've been in charge of it for what, 2 or 3 now?
Only 2 years. I don't even like to refer to myself as an owner. I refer to myself as a steward.
Yep.
Because ideally, the bar will outlive me because I'm a big believer in like a venue just being a hub in the community.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's going to be 20 years in October.
Congratulations.
So we're super psyched. The Bartender at Large podcast is hitting, 500 episodes soon. Like, just by the time this airs, it'll probably be, but, we'll be on probably episode like 495.
Yeah.
494. So it's insane. Yeah, but time flies, man.
Well, talking about longevity, congratulations. You're one of them.
Oh.
You've done it.
Thank you, man. I'm gonna wrap up on one note.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wrap up on one note before. I want to stress this to everybody out there listening. You have to enjoy the process. You have to be happy along the way. And the thing is, I was hanging out with some bartenders at AZ Cocktail Week recently, and they were asking me, like, oh my God, you must be so happy you're like living out your dream. I'm like, yeah, I'm really happy. Don't get me wrong. I'm very grateful for what I have. But I'm not any more materially happy now than I was when I was like bussing tables or when I was a bartender at Rick House. And they were like, what? They couldn't believe it. I'm like, no, because here's the thing. I was having fun then. And I was working. I was doing what I love with good people. And I'm doing that today. So it's important. Not saying you should, work towards your goals. You absolutely should. But what I'm saying is you need to make sure that you're enjoying the process of chasing your goals and making them come true. Because if you think you're all of a sudden going to be kind of happy out of nowhere once you hit some arbitrary benchmark that you set for yourself, you're going to be in for a very shocking and rude surprise. So instead, you got to find joy where you can and enjoy the process. Otherwise, you're just setting yourself up for a world of disappointment.
That's amazing advice. I would say it's almost mentorly advice.
Yeah. You have to enjoy the process, man. So,
of course.
So with that said, Josh, one more time, man, thank you so much for having me here.
Thanks.
I had a really good time.
Thanks for being on, man. Thanks for being a part of it. Thanks for everything that you do.
Cheers, man. Thank you. I'm very, very honored to be here. So thank you.
Big thanks to Erick for hanging out on this Podception episode of Branching Out. You can find him at Bartender at Large and at Hungry Bartender on Instagram. I'm so embarrassed for society as a whole that podcast is the word that we landed on for what you're listening to. It isn't really broadcast, and no one even has an iPod anymore. It's stupid. That's why when we did The Shaft and The Blackbird, I stuck to audio documentary. But I don't think Branching Out is quite the same thing as an audio documentary, but one thing I know is that someone way more clever than me should have come up with a better name than podcast by now. Anyway, if you've made it this far into the podcast, that probably means that you like it, podcast or not. So go ahead, give us 5 stars, give us a thumbs up. More importantly, tell your barbacks, tell your bar managers, just keep listening to this podcast. You can keep up on what we do with Bartender Atlas on Instagram at Bartender Atlas. Branching Out is put together by me, Josh Lindley, and Action Pact Studios here in Toronto. Additional research by Charlotte Cassinel, theme music by Aaron Verdonk, and knob twiddling by Jesse Colburn. Every week it's funny.